and you're watching the greatest show on the internet. All right, here we go. Go Vegas Live. Go Live Las Vegas. Hello, everyone. It's me, President Trump, the greatest president in the history of presidents, on Go Live Vegas. It's huge.
Go Live Vegas Studios. This is Full Tilt Vegas. My name is Richard Delatorre, and I have the book. It's in the book Winning Ways. You can get that book on Amazon. You can get the book on Google Play. You can Kindle it. Go. And you can get it on Barnes & Noble. I was one of the top-selling books on in Amazon in 2018 on gambling. We also have coffee mugs. If you're anybody interested in coffee mugs, we have my poster. You can order those here from Go Live Vegas Studios. The number is 855-502-4321. And you can order the cups here you can put a little bit of brandy in it or rum, whatever you like, hot chocolate, coffee. Yeah, that's my book there. And that's my son, and I was in Tennessee visiting him. It snowed the day I left, so it was crazy. I'm glad I wasn't stuck there in Tennessee because sometimes you're stuck there for a week or more, and I needed to get back to come back to the show. Okay, so yes, I have a special guest here, Dorothy. Deborah. Sorry, Deborah. I was thinking of the Wizard of Oz. So anyway, I'm going to let her introduce herself, and she's going to tell you a little bit about herself.
Sure. Thanks for having me here. My name is Deborah Richards. I am a film director from Las Vegas, four-time Emmy winner. Been freelance film directing, editing and writing for about 15 years here in the Valley. And I've directed about 50 to 100 TV commercials and promos. Film director, and yeah, that's who I am.
Yeah, women in Hollywood. That's a title I gave it, but it's women everywhere. In this industry, we would love to see more women directors, writers, producers. There is room for them. Especially if you have a real good project and something that's really happening at the moment. It's very, very. It's not that hard. It's kind of hard to get in, but if you fight and fight and fight and you just keep going, and someday you'll be surprised who picks it up.
Yeah, like, in 2020, 16% of all the films coming out of Hollywood, only 16% were female directors, and that number went down to 12% last year. So there is certainly more room for a lot more female directors and women throughout film, and a lot more room for equal representation in film.
Yes, and especially with all the social channels, they can start there if they had the money wise. You could actually start on Facebook, YouTube. You could film your own with friends and direct your own project, and maybe somebody would pick it up. Trust me, it has happened. So, but have you ever shot anything in Hollywood?
You know what? I like I said, I've lived in Vegas 22 years. I'm really proud of this city. All my stories are Vegas-centric and based in Vegas. And while I work with a lot of people from Hollywood, I make movies here and I make stories about Vegas.
Yeah, well, that's a popular subject, the mob or stories in Vegas. Yeah, the problem with in Hollywood, because I actually did some movies myself and commercials in the 80s. I was on a movie with Peter Weller. His next movie was Buckaroo Banzai, but he wasn't really famous at the time. There was a lot of stars there. Jeff Goldblum was there. He wasn't famous at the time. Jamie Lee Curtis was there. We were all having lunch. I knew a few of them, but Robert Ito from Quincy was there. But yes, when back then in Hollywood, it was very hard, even for minorities, because I actually did taught gymnastics and trampoline. Hold the first 3 black belt in Taekwondo. I've been in martial arts since I was in 7th grade, and I'm a former stuntman. So I had a lot of talent to get in, but sometimes if they don't want you for some reason, they won't take you. So, but I understand what that's like, you being like, hey, you get in the back. Let me talk to this man first. It's horrible. I think everybody that goes to Hollywood should have a shot. These should be based on your talent,
well,
not your looks.
I think, Hollywood is a concept, right? It's not just a place, it's a concept. It's an industry. And I think people have this misconception that to be part of this industry, you have to knock on the right door and some gatekeeper's going to open that door and say, welcome to Hollywood. And it's just not like that, right? All Hollywood is, as a concept, is just people all over the world making content. Some of it's great, some of it's not so great. Some of it makes a lot of money, some of it makes no money. But if you create and if you just make something, then you are part of Hollywood. You know how successful you are, that's a whole nother subject. But it's a complete, misnomer that there's this magical knock that you do on this magical door and you're welcomed into the arms of Hollywood. Just create. And once you create, there's a buzzword right now, which is the creator economy. And we're living in that time. We're living in that age of the creator economy. If you create and it's good, it'll get traction. The cream will always rise to the top. And that's what's happened with my career.
That's great. The problem to me with Hollywood is red tape and permits. And there's so much restriction to be filming. That's why a lot of people or production companies, they're now filming in Canada or the Midwest, or even they're coming here in Las Vegas because there's hardly no red tape, and you don't have to worry too much about permits, because that's one of the big thing in Hollywood is permits, and the prices are outrageous.
Again, I think problems with logistics. If you come up against logistical problems, it's just a lack of imagination. There's always a way around every single problem. And, being a filmmaker, one of the key components to being a good filmmaker is being a problem solver and being able to figure out ways to do things. I refuse. I'm one of those people that eats no for breakfast. I refuse to accept no, because no just means we haven't thought about this in the right creative way. So if you tell me, well, the problem is red tape, then I'm like, what's the solution? How do we work around this? What other places can we film? What other things can we do? Like, maybe we don't need to film on the street. Maybe we can do that in a studio with an LED screen, or by compositing a mix of special effects and VFX, I think in order, like, if you look at any great filmmaker, right, they never took no as the answer. They never accepted any problem they saw. It was just a challenge. So that's how I feel about that.
I understand that, but what I mean is some of the scenes that you have there, you do have to either film in a library, on the street, maybe in the London Tunnel or the Brooklyn Bridge. You have to stop traffic, so it's very expensive. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I was working with a lady, Vicky, and she had her own casting and her own list of people that were actually extras. They call them background now. But some of those production companies moved out of LA. They went to Pomona, not very far, and there was hardly no red tape. So yeah, they do move. Further east, it was even faster because even San Bernardino, they were filming stuff in San Bernardino, and they were going to Yucaipa. So it's just you just got to figure out where to go, where there's hardly no red tape, and it's not that expensive, and then time consuming too, because sometimes you can't get that permit won't work for that week or even that month. So you have to look for other ways to get around what you're doing.
Yeah, LA as a place has become very difficult to operate in for production. But this is one of the reasons why I believe that virtual production is the future of production. Virtual production is replacing green screen technology and was pioneered by the TV show The Mandalorian. And it was really the convergence of three different technologies, high density pixels in LED screens, gyroscopes on cameras relaying its position to a computer, and then running the software Unreal Engine, which is a gaming engine, which allows you to create realistic environments. And the convergence of those three technologies working in unison is what gives us virtual production. And so now if you want a 10-hour sunset in Alaska, you don't have to go to Alaska. And obviously there's no such thing as a 10-hour sunset, but you can do that on a soundstage with virtual production, and that will be the future of production.
Yeah, that's cutting corners, which is fantastic, and it's at least expensive. Yeah, that's the same thing with when I was a stuntman at the time. You had to fall 200 feet. I think Ray Dalkey, I think his name was, 300 feet, the Sharky's machine. He went out backwards, which was crazy. You don't have to do that no more. They can shoot you jump 30 feet, and they use a green screen, and it makes it looks like 1,000 feet.
Or even a digital double.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, look, filmmaking is all about problem solving at every single level. And quite often, as a female filmmaker, I'm always encountering people that say, well, you can't do this or you can't do that. And it's just a failure of imagination. The short film that I won 4 Emmys for, I made for $300. So I refuse to accept problems as a roadblock. They're just challenges to overcome.
Yeah, and is that the one that's streaming right now?
Actually, no. The latest short that I made that is streaming right now on Tubi.com is a short called Dark Lights. It's a horror, cyber kind of noir, cyberpunk horror. It was released last year in January to the festival circuit. It received some 45 honors on the International Film Festival circuit. And it just came out on Tubi.com as part of a feature anthology called The United States of Horror. And each short in the anthology represents a different state. And Dark Lights represents, obviously, Nevada. And the feature anthology is narrated by Doug Bradley, who famously played Pinhead in Hellraiser. And this just came out last week on Tubi.com, and you can watch it for free without having to set up an account or anything. Just search The United States of Horror, and Dark Lights is actually the first short in that film. So that's my latest short that's streaming for free. But it was that short last year that led to the opportunities and the funding for me to be able to do my first feature, which is called Move Me No Mountain, and that comes out a little later this year, this summer.
Okay, and what is this one about?
So Move Me No Mountain is a feature film set present day in Las Vegas. It's about Jenna Anderson, who's a Las Vegas real estate agent, and she can't get over the crushing guilt of her daughter's death. So she has decided to, in an effort to punish herself, she's decided to voluntarily leave society and become homeless on the streets of Las Vegas. So, yeah, and in order to deal with the subject matter with authenticity and dignity. We did a lot of research with the Las Vegas Rescue Mission and the Shine a Light Foundation, who both do amazing work with the unsheltered community here in Las Vegas. A lot of people don't know there's about 30,000 unsheltered people in Las Vegas, and a lot of people don't know that there's 700 miles of storm drain tunnels under the city. About 10% of the unsheltered population in Vegas live in these tunnels, and they have jurisdictions and mayors and such. And you know, when I was doing all my research with Las Vegas Rescue Mission and Shine a Light Foundation, Las Vegas Rescue Mission actually set up a bunch of interviews for me to do with people that used to be unsheltered who are now in homes. So I was able to interview them and get some really rich content, which made it into the film. And then Shine a Light Foundation took me into the tunnels a few times, and I got to you know, meet and hang out and spend time with these people, because I didn't want to just do a movie that focuses on the homeless, that paints them as, you know, drug addicts and drunks or monsters. You know, there's so many stories of why people end up on the streets, whether it is, you know, veterans who are struggling with mental health, or whether it is, you know, just regular people that lost their home in a California fire,
Yes.
but it runs a spectrum. You also have, you know, alcoholics and drug addicts and gamblers down on their luck, or you know, and even people that, like the main character in my film, even people who are punishing themselves for bad choices in life, that voluntarily are there in some kind of you know, self-punishment. So it was so important to me that you know, in this film we really kind of delved into all these different facets and reasons, and also to show Vegas in a way that you've never seen Vegas in a movie like this, because in Vegas movies it's always the casinos, right?
Right.
But we show it from the casinos to the high rises, to the suburbs, to Summerlin, to the underground tunnels, to the dingiest little corners of the back streets of downtown. We really show Vegas in a light that no one has ever seen. So I'm very excited for this film to launch. And yeah, there was about 100 people involved in the movie, and I'm extremely excited that we're going to be giving away 10% of the proceeds of the movie to 4 local charities that have the biggest impact on the unsheltered community here in Las Vegas.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, there was a. I actually was here in Vegas probably about, I don't know, 7 years ago, and actually my daughter was with me, and we did. There was a story, something. Well, it wasn't like that, but there was a drug addict trying to get away from a new life, and he had to get away from the people that he hung around with. He couldn't do it because he stayed in Las Vegas and he stayed with the element. But that actually never went through, but it was a very good story about being a drug addict. So yeah, that was really interesting. And AJ says a fantastic interview here. So yes, AJ, thank you. How many are in your crew?
Well, it really depends on what project I'm working on, and I work on so many different projects. I mean, like I said, I'm a freelance writer, director, and editor. So in that regards, I'm a hired gun. Like, for example, this week I directed 6 national TV commercials, and my crew for that was pretty tight. I mean, there was about maybe 15 people on the gig. So it's a pretty small crew. But I will say I went to film school here in Vegas, to College of Southern Nevada. That's where I won my 4 Emmys in the student category. And there's a saying in film school that your film school buddies today are your film crew of tomorrow.
Yes.
And everyone in the industry likes to work with the same people again and again and again. And I'm no different. So anytime I get a phone call for any project, you know, the first people I call up are the people that I've worked with before, that I trust, that I know. But the crews and the size of crews really, really kind of contract and expand depending on the project. For example, on Move Me No Mountain, like I said, there was about 100 people involved in that movie. And I was the writer, director, DP, and editor, so I'm channeling Kubrick on his first movie. So yeah, so the size of the crews really, like I said, contracts and expands depending on the project. But yeah,
Now, okay, people out there, because there's some people that I know they're watching because they're either they were extras at one time or I was a script supervisor. There's a couple other people I know that are grips and stuff. They're just really interested in the industry. How do you get funding for some of the projects you do, or are they already funded?
right. Well, no project starts funded. Well, I mean, when I work freelance, I'm just a hired gun, right? I'm
Right.
just walking like the 6 TV commercials that I directed this week. I didn't have to find funding. I'm just a hired director, and I just come in, look at the scripts, and put the team together, and off we go. But something like my own passion projects, whether it be my short movies or my films, Move Me No Mountain. I work in the independent space, not the studio environment, so it was a pretty small budget at $200,000. But it was up to me to raise that money, so I raised every penny of that, and it was a lot of shaking babies and kissing hands, as I like to say.
So you have a good line producer then.
Well, I mean, I've been working with the same producer exclusively for 8 years, and him and I, we basically break down the script, and through our experience, we know how much things cost. And there are two solutions in the movie business to problems, right? There's the money hose, or you can be crafty. Okay, those are the only two solutions to any problem in the movie biz, right? And I don't have the luxury of spraying things with the money hose. So I have to be crafty. Like I said, the short that I won 4 Emmys for was $300, and that was in zero gravity. So talk about crafty, right? So I know how much things cost, and I've been involved with many businesses over the years. I've been a bar owner in Vegas. I've owned a soundstage out here in Vegas. So I know what the reality is of what things cost. And so that puts me in a great position with the help of my producer, who's Emmy nominated himself, Patrick Wirtz. Between the two of us, we can pretty much break down the screenplay and figure out how much it costs, at least at this level. If we're talking about a 1 million plus movie, that might be a different subject. But at the sub 1 million level, I have a very good idea of how much things cost. But yeah, I had to raise all the money, which was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life.
Very hard.
It was funded by 9 amazing people who believed in the project and believed in the team. But I'd had the conversation with maybe 200 people, and the conversation is so difficult because you get someone's email and then you shoot them the materials. And then you check up on them a couple weeks later, and they still haven't looked at it. So you check up on them another week later, and then after that, they say, "Sure, I'm flying to Vegas next month. Let's have a dinner." So you meet them for dinner. Then they go back to their hometown. Then 3 months later, they come back with their wife, and then you have dinner with them and their wife, and then they say no. And
Free dinner.
and so you go through that whole process. And you're at different levels of that process, like multiple times with hundreds of people.
Yes.
And so, so there were days when, last year, when I would go through literally days and days and days of no's. And it beats you down, and you start thinking, oh my gosh, I'm a piece of shit because I can't pull this together, and I've only got X amount in the bank account. And, and it's really, really difficult. And it's pretty soul crushing, but you just, that's when you lean into your friends and your support group
Right.
and your activities outside of the film industry to keep you sane. And you just keep going and you believe in it. And I was so nervous about getting that professional egg on my face because I told Hollywood I was making this movie. I told my friends I'm making this movie. I told Vegas I'm making this movie. And meanwhile, I only have a couple bucks in the bank. But I persevered. I made it happen, and making your movie is a real trial by fire. And once you raise the money, and once you plow through the business of it, and once you plow through the mechanics of actually putting together a whole movie, people look at you in a different light. It's like a graduation. It's like, wow, there was. It's funny to use this this metaphor of climbing a mountain because the movie's called "Move Me No Mountain." But it really was like that. It was like looking up at this mountain, thinking, "How the hell am I going to do this?" And now I'm on the other side of that. I feel so empowered. I feel so proud of the team, and I feel larger than my physical body. I feel like this power force just ready to grip it and rip it with the next one.
No, I understand that completely. I went through the same thing, a lot of no's. I tell people if you're going to be in this industry, you got to be taking rejection. If not, don't bother. I had 3 pitches of different people, and they did have money, and it ended up no. And I don't know if it's because the content of the movie, it was a skateboarding, but a lot of people think skateboarders are juveniles and drug addicts. Well, that's not true. It's a $5.7 billion annually. And if you go to the skate parks, you see a lot of moms and their sons and daughters, and it's a family thing. Yes, I've been through the same thing, rejection for my movie 360. It's a skateboard movie, but it's not. If anybody ever seen the movie Kingpin, it was a bowling, but it was a whole story. It really wasn't about bowling, but there was a lot of bowling. Same thing with the skateboard. My teaser trailer, it's the same thing. There's a lot of skateboard. I've accidentally got a hold of the main reader from Disney, and I actually pitched it to her on the phone, and she said, this sounds something we would have done, but I'm sorry, we don't take unsolicited material. But only reason I got to her because the secretary is new and all the readers were at lunch. That's how I ended up talking to her. And I think it was in L.A. I can't remember the name of the place, L.A. director or something. And they actually used my screenplay for the students. And they had to sign an NDA. And the teacher after told me, he says, this has got a lot of twists and this is really good. I wish you luck. Yes, we're going to go ahead, Aaron. We're going to run that. Yeah. AJ's been most important. Oh, it's been the most important lesson you've learned in film production.
Wow. The most important lesson I've learned in film production. Let me think about that for a second, because there are just so many.
Let's go to the my teaser trailer. Then this is a teaser trailer that I actually produced and directed. I had a cinematographer. I had a lot of trouble with him. This is what happens in the business. And there was more footage, but I couldn't get a hold of it. And I was 11 months behind schedule. So I just ahead, and Aaron here is a fantastic editor and graphics. He went ahead and put it together for me, so it was fantastic. And this is my teaser trailer on 360.
We have got to try to get rid of those skateboarders.
We tried, boss. Those skateboarders are tricky.
We haven't tried everything.
Back here on Full Tilt Vegas. This is Go Live Vegas Studios. Yeah, that was my teaser trailer, and I'm actually looking for funding. If anybody's interested or have a friend, we can talk about that and sit down and we can go over all that.
Sure, and I got some thoughts on that, because you were saying
Oh,
earlier
okay,
that,
go ahead.
okay, so what I found, which is really, really interesting, there's a massive disconnect between artists and financiers, right? Because we speak 2 different languages. Like me personally, I speak in shapes and colors, right? And so when I'm trying to pitch to a financier, I'm just not hitting the beats that they want to hear, right? So I actually hired a coach last year who specializes in teaching filmmakers how to speak the language of finances and helps coach you through the process of raising money. And once I cracked that coconut, the money came in no problem.
Oh, that's interesting. What was his name?
Her name, Joanne Butcher.
Okay, John Butcher. Okay, that's fantastic. Once we get that, let me know when it's uploaded, Aaron. Oh, okay. You want to go ahead and tell? Go ahead and tell.
Sure. So we're about to watch a little teaser trailer for Move Me No Mountain. It's just a little 15-second trailer to get people excited about it. We're going to watch it right now, but after the trailer, if you want to see it again, you can just go to movemenomountain.com, and there'll be a little pop-up asking for your email, and if you put your email in, you'll be notified about advanced screenings and red carpet opportunities here in Vegas to go see the premiere. So, and to keep up on all the news about it. So if you like what you see, please go check out the website at movemenomountain.com. But without further ado, let's cue the video.
Oh, that was quick.
It was a 15-second teaser.
Okay, well, yeah, you can go to that and see that. I didn't get to see it myself here. I know a lot of people out there want to know, not anybody, how do you get started in this business if you have no experience and no knowledge?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in education. I would recommend anyone go to film school. But there's a caveat to that, right? There's as many bad film schools as there are bad film festivals or bad managers, or there's a lot of predatory behavior in the movie business. And, film schools are no different. But community colleges are excellent. They're an excellent entry point. Community colleges are pretty low cost, and you can always, just pay for one class for one semester and get your feet wet and figure out, an introduction to kind of film production and stuff. And then that way you can decide what part of film you want to go into, because in film, behind every door is another 12 doors, right? Mm-hmm. So, but the beautiful thing about going to film school is a couple things. First of all, you'll have access to equipment that you just wouldn't have access to otherwise, because it's very expensive and it becomes outdated very quickly. So, you could go out and spend, $2,000, $5,000, $50,000 on a film camera, and a couple years from now it will be obsolete. So,
exactly.
So if you go to film school, you have access to that equipment without any commitment other than the film school. Another great thing about film school is you will learn production vernacular. Right, there's all these crazy sayings on set or in the writer's room or whatever, whether it be The Blow or Dead Soldiers or a floppy or a 2K or whatever. So you learn all the vernacular. We already discussed earlier how your film school buddies of today are your crew of tomorrow. And you don't know, the person you're sitting in class to today could be head of a studio in 20 years. It really is like that. So for all those reasons, I'm a huge advocate. Also, the other great thing about film school is it gives you timed projects. All too often, we say as artists, oh, I really want to do this, and I'll do it next week. But when you're in school, it's like, well, you have to do it by next week because there's a deadline, and you have to do it to these specifications. So it forces you to get on with it and get it done. So for all those reasons, I really recommend community college, and just get in there and start doing it.
That's why, I've talked to probably the past 15 years. I've talked to some producers, directors. I've talked to cinematographers. When you start networking, you go to these networking, which you should be doing. They always tell me, well, back then, you know what? Well, you got to have this, and you got to this money. You got to have that money. I says, no. You ever seen the Blair Witch Project? College students using their equipment. I think, what was it, 20,000?
Yeah, but that's cherry picking the numbers. Because let me give you a little bit more background on that one specifically. A lot of people often say, "Oh, Blair Witch Project, it was made for 30,000, right?" But what people don't tell you is that when the distributors took it over, they invested 120,000 into redoing all the audio. So before that film ever came out, okay, the filmmakers were $150,000 in debt. Yet people still like to say, "Oh, it's a $30,000 film." It wasn't, right?
But that's how it got started.
Well, that's the beauty of every project. You don't need anything to get started. All you need to get started is an idea and the passion to get started. You don't need a penny to start any project.
Yeah, and I think to this date, I think it's 200. As far as 260,000. It's already made. It might be more now.
206? No, way more.
So it went up. I haven't looked it up in 2 years.
No, it's made millions.
Oh, it's in the millions. Okay, see, I'm off. Yeah, thanks, AJ. Thank you for you said thank you for my trader. It was nice. Okay, thank you. Is there anything else you want to tell the audience, especially the women? Trials and tribulations. What are they expecting to look for, and especially if they even go to film school and start in Hollywood?
Well, I think rather than speaking to women, I think I want to speak about a broader subject that applies to everyone starting in the movie business, and that's all the predatory behavior in the movie business, what to look out for, and why it exists. So I feel like the movie business, more so than a lot of other enterprises, is built on people's hopes and dreams, right? And as a result, it's wide open for abuse and predatory behavior. There's like this pixie dust of predatory behavior through every level of the movie business. Whether you're an immigrant fresh off the boat to LA and you're walking down the street and people are trying to sell you iPhone headshots for a couple $100 and they take your photo with an iPhone. Whether it's that, whether it's managers, whether it's agents, whether it's distributors, whether it's shoddy film festivals or film festival ancillary services. There's so much predatory behavior in the movie business, so just watch out for that. If it quacks like a duck and sounds like a duck and walks like a duck, and you know the saying, right? So, be savvy. Anyone that offers you anything in the movie business, speak to someone else that they've offered this to, that they've worked with before. If a manager says, "I want to represent you," speak to their other clients. If a distributor wants to distribute your movie, speak to another production entity that's had a movie distributed by them. So predatory behavior really bothers me. And I think the biggest key to it is if you see something, say something, right? Because all too often, people don't say something because they're afraid that they're either going to look silly or they're not going to advance in their career, or they don't want to speak up because they're bullied into a position of not speaking up. And it's exactly that reason why people like Harvey Weinstein was able to get away with shit so long. Basically, I feel like there's two ways to play the game in Hollywood, right? There's speaking the truth, which people often don't, or there is the Hollywood gloss over it. And what I mean by the Hollywood gloss over it is, "Oh, what was it like to work with Jonathan? Oh, it was great. It was wonderful. It was the best experience of my life." Or there's the speaking the truth, like, "Oh my gosh, he called me Dorothy." Do you know what I mean? So you gotta call out nonsense when you see nonsense. Otherwise, people like Harvey Weinstein just grab the ball and run with it. So I would say that to women, but I'd say that to everyone. It's not a woman thing, right?
Yes, I've seen even the late 80s when I wasn't doing it anymore, but towards the end, I've seen some stuff that I kind of knew, but I know some people that I don't talk about, but there it is. Not like people
But why
think.
don't you talk about it? You should talk about it. That's my point. It's because
it's-
people don't. It's uncomfortable, right?
Well, yeah, but not only that, a lot of times you didn't say anything because you were blackballed. So
Right.
So
But-
that's
that's
why-
that's the fear. That's wrong. Look. I shoot from the hip, and I speak my mind, and 3 out of 4 times it's won me favors. And the 1 out of 4 times that it set me back, that wasn't the space for me. Those weren't the people for me. Those weren't the right people to work with. So, I'm a big advocate of speaking up and speaking your truth.
Okay. We got, I guess I'm going to do this for both of us. Well, do you look up as a director? For me, it would be Clint Eastwood.
Oh, yeah, why so?
Who?
Why?
Oh, because he's done all the films he's done. It's just not like just one type. He's done all kinds, and he's a fantastic actor. I remember his story, him and Burt Reynolds, when they both got fired the same day. I don't know if you heard the story.
No, tell me.
They were both stuntmen at one time, and I think it was I'm not going to say I'm just not going to say the studio, but anyway. So Burt Reynolds was supposed to be doing a stunt. I wasn't that high. I think it was 25 feet, and he kept doing the stunt, jumping off and falling off, and the director was yelling and screaming at him and saying, "Hey, you do it this way. You got to do this." And he got tired of doing it, and so he told him, "Why don't you come up and show me how I should take off, what I should do here and that." So when he was standing over there, Burt Reynolds pushed him off. And then Clint Eastwood, he got fired. He did something too. It was actually funny because it was the same day, and they told him his nose was too big. And they both were, when they left, they were in the parking lot talking to each other, saying, "We got fired." And look what happened to Burt Reynolds. He wanted to be a great star, and look where Clint Eastwood is today. I just think, especially that I'm trying to remember the name of that movie, the boxing movie with. That was a fantastic
me in a
movie.
second, yeah.
That was just so sad at the end. I said, "Man, why did it have to end like that?" Was that a true story?
I don't.
Because he does a lot of.
So.
He does a lot of true stories.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So.
But that's so interesting, and it's funny about someone saying, "Oh, your nose is too big" or whatever, which kind of goes back to the predatory behavior thing that so many people have a vested interest to tell you why you can't succeed in the industry, because they either want to squeeze you out of the marketplace, or they want to sell you their services on telling you how to do it right. And that's what I mean by this pixie dust of predatory behavior. But getting back to Clint Eastwood, one of the things that I love about him as a director that I've onboarded into my own style of directing is, instead of saying action, once the frame is set up and everything's ready to go, I say to my actors, "Whenever you're ready." And that's something that I learned from Clint Eastwood, and marvelous director. As for me, there are so many people I look up to. I mean, I could just rattle off directors' names all day long, from P.T. Anderson to Martin Scorsese to Stanley Kubrick to Hitchcock's wife. I could just rattle off names. I mean, there's so many. There's so many greats. We have 100 years plus now of cinema history.
Mm-hmm.
You think about that. You think about how many films come out each week. There's about 8 studio films that come out each week, and probably 100 independent films that come out each week. So to say who's your favorite is really tough. But I look up to so many. I mean, and for different reasons, right? I love Wes Anderson's whimsical take on things, but then I love just Stanley Kubrick's audacity to just jump from genre to genre. So, yeah, so many amazing directors, so many amazing artists. But I find inspiration in all sorts of things, not just in movies or directors. Some people think I'm aloof or a little bit scatterbrained or a little bit ditzy, but that's because I'm constantly background processing in the back of my head. Because I'll see a shadow or a shape or a blinky light, and I'm thinking, wow, that reminds me of this, and what if I mix this with that and smush those two ideas together? And that's the secret to creativity. But so I find inspiration in all places.
That's interesting how you say whenever you're ready, because back in the day when it was just film, we got sound, we got speed, roll them.
Well, that's when you're paying by the fraction of the second for the film, right? That film is running through the gate, and that film is money. Now with the advent of digital cinematography, That's been alleviated somewhat. It's a lot cheaper, obviously, to
Oh, yeah, it's
film
digital.
with
Oh,
digital,
big
as
time.
we're doing now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I get what you're saying.
Yeah, because I think it was the movie 21 because it's gambling, but me and Anthony Curtis, he has a magazine here. Now I can't remember, but he came on my show, Las Vegas Advisor. Fantastic. Anything you want to know about Las Vegas, go to his website, and it's fantastic. But yeah, we were talking about that movie and the actual the cinematographer and the director did not want to do it digital. They wanted to do it in 35 millimeter, and they told him no, we're going to do this because it's cheaper. It's 3-to-1. So what they did was they went and shot part of it, and they shot the same scene, and they said they could hardly tell the difference, and it was so much cheaper and
Right.
faster because you don't have to wait for the dailies.
Right. Well, a few directors still shoot on film. Tarantino, Ben Affleck. The last TV show that was on air that was still shooting with film that I know of was American Horror Story. I think the first 4 seasons for sure were shot on film, which is really unusual for a TV show. But I actually just thought of an answer to AJ's question earlier about what's the biggest lesson I've learned from production, and I think it's a lesson that I've applied to many areas of my life, and that is you don't need all the answers to head off on a project, right? Like, say if you go on a road trip, you need to know where you're going, but you don't need to know where every single gas station is along the way, right? You can kind of, you know where you're going, you know what vehicle you're driving in, you know how much gas you've got.
Unless it's electric.
That's yeah, unless it's electric. But you don't need all the answers. Like with funding, right? You don't need all the money to start a movie. You just need the money you need for production. You can worry about post-production while the movie's in the can. And then once the movie's in the can, it's a lot easier to get more money because you can say, hey, I shot a movie. I need money to finish it. So the point being is that you don't need all the answers to get where you need to be going in life. You just need to have a goal and a direction.
Aaron, how much we got?
You got about 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yeah, because we actually started late. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. For my trader, it's been horrible, but I believe in my project. I know it's going to make money. The math doesn't lie. Someday I'm going to do this movie because it took a long time to do the trader, but sometimes if you're passionate enough, you just keep going. I had one director tell me, you have that screenplay for, I think it was 12 years. And he goes, just give it up. I says, no, because skateboard is more popular now than it was back then. You think they would have told Jack Nicholson you can't play One Over Cuckoo's Nest? I think it was on the shelf for 15 years.
Well, Queen's Gambit was on the shelf for like nearly 30.
Yeah, so you never know. And one who, what was the Romancing the Stone with Michael Douglas? That was written by a waitress. So, I mean, there's so many stories. I think it was 80% of the movies that were made in the 80s were made indies. So, I mean, if you got an idea for a project or something, just write it down and eventually get it into format and see if you can pitch it, because you never know. You just don't know who wants what. So,
But I would say to that point that you've got to understand the logistics and the business of the industry, right? And to that point, you've got to reverse engineer it. Like, for example, is your movie sub 300,000 or 1 million plus for a budget? Which range do you see it being in?
Because of digital today and the people I know, I can probably do it for $500,000. But I would like 5 million.
So right there tells me a lot about what you know about the business side of it, okay? Because $500,000 for a movie is no man's land in terms of independent films, right? Mm-hmm. If you have named actors, your budget is going to be $1 million plus, right? If you don't have named actors, and what's the genre of the movie?
It's a whole full story about kids in high school, but it's skateboarding.
Okay, so it's a high school drama?
Yes.
Okay, so 99.9% of all no-name indie dramas make less than $3,000 a quarter. Think about that.
But the reason why I think this movie is going to make money because Skateboard is a $5.7 billion annual, and
Yeah, okay, so what you're talking about is there's an audience there, right?
there isn't
and
120 million
right,
skateboarders.
absolutely, no doubt, okay? And connecting with your audience is paramount in order for you to understand the mechanics of the finances. You can't, even if you have that audience, right, you can just look at the numbers of what movies are making, right? I just said 99.9% of all no-name indie dramas make less than $3,000 a quarter. That's the reality. So $500,000 is just no man's land. I mean, a really, really good indie thriller that has that connects with an audience and something like that, you might make $30,000 a quarter if you're lucky, right? So if you think about that, you can make about $200,000 in about roughly 2 years. Now, when you pitch that to an investor, the first thing an investor is going to say is, when do I get my money back, right? If you say we have everything in place to return your investment within 2 years, now you have their attention. But if you say, well, my budget's $500,000 and I know that 99% of all indie no-name dramas make less than $3,000 a quarter, you've lost your investors, and that's why your movie hasn't got made.
Well, it's the pitching too, because some people don't want to hear about skateboarders. That's been a big problem.
If I was a producer, you lost me on the pitch at $500,000.
All skateboard venues or movies that ever been made have made money. Every one.
Name one.
Trashin' with Keith, or what's his name?
Okay, so a named actor.
That was him.
So
I'm
that's
trying
$1
to
million
remember
plus.
his name. But actors today are taking points on the back. That's how they're able to make these movies.
Doesn't matter.
A lot of movies.
It doesn't matter. You still, if you have a named actor, even if they're taking points on the back, right? There's still SAG, minimum rates. Plus, in this climate, you've now got to have COVID compliance built into your budget. So, which is like 30%.
Yeah, a lot of these movies, I don't know if you've checked lately. It's actually the past couple of years I've watched. A lot of these movies are been made for $1 million, $2 million.
That's what I'm saying.
Because the actors are taking points on the back.
Well, look, points on the back doesn't affect the budget, right? It's
But
points on
that's
the back
why
is
they're
points
not
on the back.
Paying $20,000 up front for these actors, or $20 million, excuse me.
Right, but my point being is that you're not gonna. If you make a movie for $500,000, you're unlikely to get named talent. If you don't have named talent, you're not gonna make $500,000 back. If you have named talent, like I said, $500,000 is no man's land. And when you're talking to financiers, you can't speak in shapes and colors like skateboarding's great or there's no. They need to know numbers. They want to know, when am I going to make my money back?
I do have the numbers. I didn't bring it because we're going to talk about you.
Well, that's the next thing. If you're pitching, you got to know your shit cold.
Oh yeah. Oh, I've had all that on the 3 times that I actually pitched. I had all the numbers and everything in front of them, and they agreed it's going to make money, but they weren't interested because the skateboarding kids, they figured they were juveniles and they didn't want to be involved with that. It says here, distributing is the key.
Distribution is key. I mean,
Key.
if you don't have distribution, no one's going to see your movie. In the case of our film, we had distribution before we had a first look deal with Mutiny Pictures before we even shot a thing. A lot of filmmakers make a film and then they try and sell the film, and unfortunately, that's kind of cart before the horse.
Yeah.
You gotta have an idea of how you're gonna get it out there before you even shoot anything. Otherwise, when it comes to the conversations with the investors, they're going to be like, well, how are you going to market? How are you going to distribute this? They need to feel comfortable and confident that they're going to get their money back plus a return on investment within a timely manner.
Yeah, I had a friend, I'm just going to say his first name, John. He shot his, it was, I think, a total of $50,000. He shot his, and it went straight to video, or digital, but he won some pretty good awards, and he did it by himself, but he did go to school. But we talked about all the projects back then. This was probably 5 years ago, and there were a lot of projects were made like this. And he actually shot it first, and he went to the festivals, and he actually did pretty good. I don't know what he's doing today. Last time I heard, he was in Egypt. So
Well, the crazy thing is that the movie industry, even in the last 5 years, has changed dramatically.
oh yes, especially when everything went. To me, digital. I knew digital when it came out was the future. A lot of complaints, taking the money.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I'll agree with this point about bad distribution companies that take your money and you don't get money back and all that kind of thing. This comes down to predatory behavior. Distribution is the one area in the movie business where it's the easiest to fudge the numbers. It's the easiest to fudge the numbers. Therefore, it invites the most predatory behavior. There are as many shitty distribution companies as bad film festivals because it's the easiest place to fudge the numbers.
Yeah, I was gonna be doing that, going to some of the festivals. I was gonna have a couple of my friends that already done it go with me for the first time, but I end up moving here and I end up doing the show. So that's why I'm showing my trailer here. But I'm still going to be pursuing that because I got other things that I'm working on right now too. What I got, Aaron? 3? 4 minutes. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to tell the audience or anything about your future projects?
Sure, I'm supposed to be announcing it tomorrow night, but I might as well drop the news right now.
That'd be nice.
So
Free advertisement.
yeah, so this is oh we're taking off. We're taking off. So breaking news. Okay, so my next film. I always said I wouldn't make a documentary, but as Stanley Kubrick once said, you don't pick your movies pick you. I am making a movie called Shaken and Stirred, which is the story of flair bartending. Las Vegas is the capital in the world of flair bartending. And so we're going to talk about we're going to do a documentary about the rise and fall and resurgence of flair bartending called Shaken and Stirred.
Yeah, because I think the D has some of the top flair bartenders. The D, did you shoot it? You're shooting over there, are you?
Actually, funnily enough, one of the bartenders at the D was one of the executive producers on my last movie, funnily enough.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's. I think a lot of people drink liquor are gonna like that, especially me.
Yeah, there you go. We have, yeah, and it's about connecting with your audience. Like, for example, you're saying about the skateboard world, massive audience. Like,
Right.
we already have the emails of 10,000 flair bartenders worldwide already. So that's, one of the major factors of also my production partners on this project are giants in the world of bartending and the liquor industry. So for those reasons, that was my into that. But just to talk about your movie just really quick, I just want to say, if you like, I'd love to read the screenplay and take a look at it and give you my opinion.
That's fine. I've got opinions from people, some pretty good directors, and everything so far has been fantastic. They said this, like, I think did I tell you, Disney?
Yeah, you told me that you managed to bluff your way into without representation to someone who would be kind enough to listen to you.
Yes, she
So,
did.
but yeah, if you want me to have a look at it, I'd love to have a
Yeah.
look at it. I'm always looking for more materials.
Yeah, Aaron here, his wife's reading it. Finally. So anyway, yeah, okay, we're gonna say, Dorothy, you want to say goodbye or good night? Deborah from Las Vegas.
Yeah, see how you got to call
Deborah,
stuff out when it
I
goes
know.
down. Deborah Richards from Las Vegas. You can catch me on Instagram at Debbie in Pink. That's DebbieInpink. Debbie in Pink. And please check out the movie at MoveMeNoMountain.com. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And we're gonna leave it here. We'll see you. Actually, I'm gonna be on live again at 6 o'clock. We'll say goodbye here from Full Tilt Vegas at Go Live Vegas Studios. Thank you.